The river was raging when a hand suddenly reached out from the water and grabbed the rock, nails scratching the stone, while another hand managed to hold on. Isa managed to pull herself off the water long enough to take a deep breath, coughing from the water from her lungs. She wrapped her arms around the rocks, lifting herself up with shaking limbs, before collapsing on the bank of the furious river. Her upburnt hair, almost black from the water, fell around her face when she breathed, trying to calm her panicked heart. For a long moment, the only thing she could hear was the furious current of the river behind her and the drops of water falling from her face, hair, and clothes. Her green eyes suddenly widened as she stopped breathing, her whole body freezing in terror before looking up. She looked around frantically at the riverbank at the other side of the river, the waves of tremendous water. "Loki!" she heaved, rising to her knees and looking all around. Her green eyes filled with panic and worry as she watched the water, but no sign of the raven-haired man anywhere. No! The only thing she could imagine and see were the pine trees, the dark and cloudy sky, and the blue and white out of the river. Isa remembered the fall. Loki had grabbed her arm and pushed them off the cliff, and turned around to see that was one thing hitting the water, using his cetera to shield them. As soon as they had hit the tremendous river, the current had washed them away, making them disappear into violent waves, stealing their breath away and filling their lungs with water. She didn't remember when his hand had let go of hers, but she had lost sight of his dark figure almost immediately, before starting to drown. "Loki?" she started calling, hoping someone near the forest would emerge at hearing her voice. "Loki!" she shouted desperately. Isa didn't even recall how she managed to get out of the water. The current had been so strong for her, or Loki, to swim. It had just taken them away violently, letting them breathe a little every once in a while before trying to drown them again. She had hit rocks, pebbles, branches of trees, but mostly she had kept trying to reach for Loki's hand in the water. Now the sound of the rushing water faded away, only leaving her panicked heartbeat. She couldn't lose Loki. Not now. Not after they've come so far. "No," she whispered, tears filling her eyes along with despair and breathing becoming short. Suddenly she noticed something in the water, a silhouette as blue as the water, but unlike the mad waves of the river, it wasn't moving. Isa stared at it through the watery vision and gasped when she realized that there were two dark blue eyes observing her closely. The silhouette moved it suddenly and rose from the river. Isa fell backwards, mouth wide open in shock, seeing the next water spirit. She was naked, but her long, dark blue hair fell over her body and floating in the water. Her whole body looked like if it was made out of the clearest part of the river. "The prince cannot die yet. The Norns refuse it," she said calmly, her voice sounding far away, as enchanting as the waterfall and as feral as the tremendous river. For a moment, Isa was too astonished to know what to do or say. She frowned when she realized the meaning of the words. "The Norns?" she repeated in dread. "Of course, the Norns!" she exclaimed, before advancing to kneel on the edge of the rock and look at Nyx. "You need to find him. To find Loki. He's too important to die," Isa shouted, her voice trembling more than she wanted to. The Nyxie stared at her silently, her head tilting lightly to one side to another, as if she was trying to understand what the vulva was saying. "The Norns refuse to let the prince die yet. He has more to accomplish before his thread of life may be cut," she continued in her mesmerizing voice. Isa's heart missed a beat, looking in fear and disbelief at the voice, which sounded suddenly more threatening than a river itself. "What?" she breathed, swallowing hard before shaking her damp hair, frowning furiously at the magical creature. "I know that. Go get him. He's drowning and dying. Save him!" she yelled, her voice suddenly feral and dangerous. The Nyxie stared at Isa for a long moment, before finally moving. She lifted her arm elegantly, water falling from it like a quiet waterfall as she indicated to the bottom of the river. Her electrifying blue eyes looked straight into Isa's green ones. The latter understood the silent message and got up suddenly, running as fast as she could towards the direction the Nyxie had indicated. Isa ran until she had no more breath, until she could feel her can't feel her legs anymore. She had lost count of the time she had spent running, pushing away tree branches, but finally, she saw Loki! She yelled, finding the voice she didn't know she still had. Isa ran and fell on her knees next to Loki's body. He was lying on the sandy ground between several pointy rocks. Her hands trembled as they approached him, but she finally turned him around, holding her breath in fear until she realized he was still breathing. She stared at his face, covered in scratches and water drops. His left temple was deeply cut and bleeding terribly, probably after doing hit some rock in the water. "Oh, Loki," she murmured, her voice filled with relief as she finally sighed. Isa took his arms and pulled him completely out of the water to hide between the trees and rocks. She was washed in his injury as she used her setter to heal him, dry his clothes, and take away the pain in his body. She made a fire and then waited, looking at the sleeping prince's troubled expression. Loki couldn't breathe, not because of the fall nor the water in his lungs, but because of the fear strangling in his throat so tightly. He was in the same nightmarish place all over again. The lame breath was haunting him once again, as every time he closed his eyes, be it from sleep or simply blinking his eye. Every time he noticed close his eyes, even for the shortest time, darkness fell over him. His heart turned cold and heavy, where the same voice kept coming back, resonating in his mind like a dark melody. "You will never be enough, Loki." He felt like he was falling towards his black hole over again. His father's terrible words, and he couldn't understand, stabbing his heart sharper than any blade could ever hope to. "No, Loki." She heard a crashing sound. Maybe it was his heart, or his body, or maybe the lame breath had collapsed on top of him. For a moment Loki thought the nightmare was over, but then another voice, darker and madder, came back to his mind. All the while a shrieking wrath sounded keep hitting the back of his head, or maybe it was his own voice screaming for release from the pain or cold, but never to be heard by anyone but himself. "You will be the cause of Asgard's fall." "No! Loki!" Loki looked around, breathing hard and barely able to see clearly in the dark night. Suddenly he felt someone's hands reaching for him, trying to calm him down as he realized that it had been another nightmare. He took a deep breath. His eyes fell on Isa's silhouette, the fire behind her making her look like she was made of flames. He blinked, and for a moment of the mad witch Isa's laugh echoed. Loki opened his eyes wide again and stared at the beautiful dark green that were staring at him with worry, sadness, and concern. "Loki, are you all right?" she asked in a low voice, brushing him lightly as if she was scared to break him. Loki looked at her, and his heartbeat finally calmed down a little. Isa was nothing like his vision created by the lame breath. She was sweet, tender, and was looking at him as if were the brightest person she had ever laid her eyes on. He gave a short nod, sitting up more as she sighed in relief to see him awake and well. Loki sat up completely ignoring the pain shooting through his sore body and looked around. He quickly understood that they were in the forest, but close to the river in which they had fallen. He didn't feel as terrible as he should, considering the horrible pain that shot through his body. When he had hit the water after, the fall of the terrible sensation drowning without being able to fight against the current. Loki looked back at Isa, who looked lost as he was, but when she lifted up her eyes, a soft smile appeared on her face. "I'm so glad you're all right. I was scared when I thought you were gone," she murmured, her hand cupping his cheek while her thumb brushed smoothly. He stared at her, not quite understanding why his heart suddenly beat stronger. His own hand had came up to hold her waist, her face leaning into her palm without even realizing it. Their eyes met, emotions mirroring each other. Confusion, hope, warmth, peace. Loki didn't understand what was going on between them, but he didn't want to let go of her hand. Not yet. He wanted to keep holding on to her while longer. He lowered his confused green gaze towards the little space separating them. "So many things happened. What should we do?" Isa said, sounding lost, like she was lost about where to go next. Their hands fell and she handed them a gourd of fresh water as the prince thought about the solution. in order to avenge Queen Norda because of the fake rumors that Odin didn't wanted to conquer at Jotunheim. The Jonan Council had a spy sent to Asgard who caused the mayhem and confusion with the Queen's maids and the attack against the princes. The spy followed Loki all the way to Jotunheim, where they were now preparing for war. As the prince learned about this, he had barely escaped, Isa killing Bjorn on the way. His gaze turned towards the burning fires before speaking. After the death of the mountain giants' princes, war was inevitable. It is more than likely Asgard already knows. The troops are on their way to march upon Jotunheim, he declared with a hard voice. Isa swallowed, looking up at him hesitantly. What about Odin? If he really wants to conquer Jotunheim, then... No, Loki interrupted, with a cold voice. But the mountain giants have proof that Odin doesn't want to conquer Jotunheim. I would know that. He would never. I know my father, Loki said, frowning. Do you? She asked. Her eyes stared at him intensely. Loki's green eyes flickered for just a second. Did he know his father? He was manipulative, a fierce and powerful warrior ready to do anything to win. But he was a great king and wise man. He wouldn't go to war against Jotunheim just to conquer. Odin has no interest in conquering Jotunheim. It would only make him lose the 9 realms at respect. No, it was invented by Fochnor. Maybe he knew all along we were spying on him in that room and he lied to confuse us. Isa gave a little nod as Loki stood up, expression fierce and determined. We have to go to my father's troops and warn him. He won't go into battle solely against the mountain giants, all Jotunheim, if he doesn't know and isn't prepared. The battle. Loki's voice trailed off. He couldn't recall a story or battle in which his father had not come back victorious. Every time Odin knew everything, he needed to know about his enemy, the geography of the armies. Now the Jotunheims had played their game very well, making him think of the mountain giants were the only enemy when all the Jotunheims were joining King Fochnor. Odin was marching straight into a trap, and Loki was the only one able to warn him. Your mother was innocent, he finally said, not truly knowing why he would say such a thing. For a moment, Isa looked lost and confused, before her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded with a sad smile. She was, she whispered, remembering what Fochnor had said about the spy who drove Queen Frigga's maids mad. I apologize for what happened to her and your sister. As soon as the story is over, I'll free her myself from the dungeons, Loki said, bowing his head slightly to seal his promise. Isa wiped away the tears that were starting to roll down her cheeks and smiled at him. Her smile was so relieved and happy that he couldn't help but give a little smile as well, a smile more true and beautiful than most of his smiles. Thank you, she murmured, her eyes shining from the tears. He didn't answer, but her hand reached out for him, holding his sleeve as she cried in silence. Loki looked up at the stars, giving her the respect and privacy she deserved, all the while staying by her side. She had mourned for her mother, dead because of the Jotunheim's evil plan, for her sister whom she feared so much, knowing she was in Asgard's dungeons for her freedom when she would return to Asgard. Let's sleep until morning, then we'll head back north and hope to come across Asgard's troops, Loki said quietly. Isa nodded, wiping away her tears. They both lay down on the ground. Loki didn't fall asleep, but he watched a girl next to him doing so. He tried to, but every time he closed his eyes, fear overtook his heart, and he couldn't bring himself to fall into more nightmares. He turned on his way back, watching the stars, and hoping it would lull him into some sleep. One star, brighter than the others, finally came up, and he had to wake up Isa at the first rays of sunlight. They started walking into the forest, praying that Loki's knowledge of Jotunheim's geography would lead them to the wrong way, because they had no time to lose. They walked north alongside the river until night fell. They were still in the forest because Loki's injuries were still hurting his body. Isa climbed up to the top of the tree to look for some landmarks, but it was only a huge disappointment when they found out they merely advanced towards the mountains. We should cross that river and head west, Loki concluded, after thinking that the young woman had indicated to him. The forest ends towards the west, and then after lowland, there are some mountains. but I didn't see Utgard, so it must be further north, she answered. It might be one of the valleys to reach plain of Shungum, he said, brows furrowed in thoughts. Plains of Shungum? Isa repeated, confused. Loki stared right into her eyes. It was the hard one of his voice sending shivers down her spine. The field for battles to come, he said. She took in a shaky breath, trying not to tremble at the idea of a battle against the Jotunums. The battlefield, she breathed breathlessly. Is this real? She asked, turning towards him with wide eyes. Loki gave a bitter laugh, trying not to show his worry for the battles to come, knowing that his brother and father were probably already marching towards Utgard, without the knowledge at all of Jotunum wanting them dead. It is real battles, wars, nothing if it's an illusion, I'm afraid. I thought you wanted to become a fierce warrior, he asked, his tone tensing up to the mood as best as he could. Isa couldn't help but smile at him, remembering their first day together when she had shared him the desire of becoming a warrior as proud and as powerful as Lady Sif. I might be able to prove myself much sooner than I expected, she answered with a little smile. Sitting on the ground, under some trees, they smiled at each other, knowing that the peaceful feeling between them would soon falter when they reached Sunground. The stars couldn't be seen. Their only light was the bright fire burning next to them. They could hear the slight breeze of wind in the trees, little night animals starting to wake up. Loki had known places like the forest had turned into ash and desolation because of the wars. He never cared for Jotunum and never didn't care less about its fortresses, but he still felt sad to know that his place where Izo and he were sitting, smiling and jokingly, might turn into a battlefield in a few days. I don't want this morning to come, she suddenly said, breaking the silence between them. Loki turned his face towards Isa, but didn't say a word. She was staring ahead of her, her eyes filled with worry and fear. When she turned her gaze towards him, he felt his heart clench tighter than he would care to admit. All of her emotions, her fright and concern, weren't all for her own life, but his. I don't want to know you're heading into a battle where you might not come back from, she breathed, her deep green eyes filling with tears. Loki's heart missed a beat, his lips slightly parted in shock to hear such words. He had never heard anyone caring for him that much as to fear for his life. His mother loved him, but she knew his duty as a prince and warrior has to fight in for Asgard. No one has ever told him such words. Isa swallowed before moving, kneeling in front of him and leaning forward, her cheeks turning red while she spoke. Loki, promise me you'll survive this battle, she exclaimed, taking his hands into hers tightly. He stared at her in disbelief, not knowing what to think. His gaze lowered towards the entwined hands and the warmth that she was giving him. He realized that she was trembling out of fear for him. He looked up at once again, seeing how she cared enough for him to plead for his promise. They both knew he couldn't give up such a promise, and even less be assured of Asgard's victory, no matter how powerful its army was, but they needed its hope that there might be something waiting for them after the battle. Why? He said, in a low voice, not knowing to feel or think after her words. Isa stared at him before giving a little laugh that she strangled in her throat with her emotions. She smiled sadly at him, her hands tightening around his. Why? Because I need you, she whispered. He stopped and breathing in shock. You are so bright, so powerful, amazing. Loki, how could I not? Her voice trailed off, and her hand rose up to cup his cheek. She opened her lips to say the words he expected her to say, but before she found the bravery and the words to do so, his hands cupped her cheeks and they pulled her down. Their lips met and their kiss was breathless and passionate. His fingers tangling in his raven hair, they pulled apart, foreheads resting against each other, now staring into one another's eyes. I promise I will survive this battle, he murmured. You're a liar, Loki, she replied, eyes filling with tears. He kissed her again, almost tenderly, warmth spreading across their bodies before looked into her eyes once again. I may be a liar, but I always keep my promises, he replied fiercely. Isa's lips trembled as she leaned forward, kissing him again with passion. Loki pulled her against him, kissing her cheek, jaw, and then neck. She tilted her head to give him some more space, her fingers tangling into his hair. "Loki," she whispered, her voice sounding breathless. His lips brushed her skin almost delicately before her voice rose again, breaking the heavy rhythm of their panting breaths. "Tomorrow we might find your brother. This might make worth everything we've been through. Please," Isa breathed, her body trembling against his in desperation. Loki froze, staring at the skin of his shoulder, lips parted in surprise above her skin. Just like a few days ago, he smiled at the sweet flower scent, still unable to remember where his fragrance came from. Isa lowered her bright green eyes towards him, then he grabbed her head, crushing their lips together once again. She ravaged her lips and he kissed and sucked and licked the skin on her neck. She grinned and her eyes closed in delight. Their breath came short groans of pleasure rising in the forest before the ground became their bed, and their only witness of the night were the Norms, watching above them as strings of fate were being pulled.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.